And today is May 21st, 2013. Thanks for joining us tonight. You're listening to episode 6 of the CopBlock Radio Show. CopBlock Radio is a show dedicated to police accountability in the police state and is brought to you by copblock.org. If you have a story you'd like to submit, or there's something you'd like to talk about on the show, or you have a specific topic or question you want addressed on the show, please send an email to copblockradioshow@gmail.com. And also be sure to like us, like our Facebook page, as you can find it at CopBlock Radio. CopBlock Radio Show, all one word, on Facebook. And if you go there, you can stay up to date on what's going on with the show and when we're going to have special guest interviews like we had 2 last week. So you can find out what the times of those would have been if you had liked the page. My name's Eric. You can find me over at freerockpress.com and OhioCopBlock.org, which you can find both of those on Facebook as well. And with me tonight, as always, is Adam from Spokane CopBlock, and you can find them on Facebook if you just search for Spokane CopBlock. And then tonight, we also have a special guest with us. We have the founder of CopBlock and all-around thorn in the authorities side, Ademo.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It's like we were saying just before the show started, it's long been an aspiration of mine to have a CopBlock radio show, and just never could find the time, and so you guys beat me to it, and I enjoy seeing that it exists. So thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem.
Well, thanks for coming on.
So I guess anybody who's been living under a rock might not know who you are, so why don't you tell us a little about yourself and what you're doing leading up to the creation of CopBlock.
Sure. Appreciate the compliment. I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty of people who don't know who I am. Sadly, I guess, because since, I don't know, 2008, I've been what I would consider as fairly active in what is known as the Liberty Movement, I guess. But basically, I came involved with this through what is known as the Liberty Movement through Ron Paul. 2008, started to question, the political paradigm. I mean, long before that, I was a early victim of the war on drugs in my life, and that gave me a total change of mind for the whole justice system. Absolutely had no faith in that. And after 2008 and the Ron Paul campaign, pretty much lost all faith in the government as we know it today, and sought out to question or to find some answers to some questions that I had. And through that and the internet, I came across a project that was a week old called motorhomediaries.com, and that's how I met Pete Ayer and Jason Talley, who just so happened to be driving through Chicago, which is about 2.5 hours south of where I lived in Wisconsin. And they were doing a project, like I mentioned, motorhomediaries.com. The tagline was "Searching for Freedom in America." And I just asked them, like, hey, I had some of these similar questions myself, and I've been coming along this, what I call the logical conclusion and the path to my logical conclusion. And I was wondering if I could hang out with you guys for a while. And they said, sure, come on board. And what was supposed to be a month turned out to 7 months. And what at this moment is what I consider a lifelong friendship. Jason and Pete are both really good, close, dear friends of mine who, and I have gone on to continue to work together. But after Motorhome Diaries in 2009, Pete and I were both back at my folks' home in Wisconsin, kind of taking a breather after 7.5 months of jetting around the country in an RV. And that's where I kind of came up with the idea to start copblock.org. Like I had mentioned before, I'm a victim of the war on drugs, and I wanted to share my story about how this was a life sentence and how I was treated by police and how I came to the conclusion that I actually didn't harm anybody. In fact, I'm the victim, and I had done jail time, had money stolen from me, and have lost employment opportunities due to my felony status, along with my what I consider natural rights to own and bear arms. And so very big, severe punishment that I had a lot of questions about, and so I wanted to use and create an outlet for that, and that's how CopBlock was founded. And so Jason and Pete both helped me build the structure for the website, but very quickly and early on, we took on some submissions, and people would say, help me or share this. And it wasn't long before Pete and I realized that, there's a need to have a one-stop shop for police accountability or police actions altogether, not just what the police are doing today, but what we think we can do to improve it, and no matter the paradigm or scope. And so how do you achieve these different goals without having control over anything? And decentralization is what we came up with. Pete and I are, strong advocates against intellectual property and things like that, especially when it comes to like public information and knowledge. And so Copblock.org is a domain that is owned by an individual, but that's the only control they really have over it. The information on the website, who can contribute to the website, all these other things are open to anybody. We've left it, as long as Pete and I are around, I can't see it being any other way. And folks are able to submit. Both of you hosts are perfect examples of, Ohio Copblock is one of the first chapters to spring up. Spokane is another example of how folks who are like, hey, I love the brand, I love the name, and I can do whatever I want locally or to my specific needs, but yet still have this one-stop shop, this hub where we all film and record and share police actions. We talk about these actions and we try to correct these actions. And so, sure, Copblock might have a face that seems to be like we hate cops or that is anti-cop, but in fact, there is no we at all. It's just what the mission statement says. It is a diverse group of individuals with the only shared goal of police accountability, and that's it. I can't hear you, just so you know.
Hey, I was muted. All right. So in the past couple of years, you've had a few run-ins with the state. You want to tell us about your most recent one?
Sure. My most recent would be wiretapping, and I don't know. I guess it's easy to start. I guess I was charged with wiretapping for pretty much playing this is the most journalistic role I've actually considered myself to ever play. I feel a lot of times activists use the journalistic aspect to, grant themselves extra rights or whatever. I just, I always feel that as an individual, I'm doing something I feel is right. And, I don't need to say that I'm press or acting under the guise of this piece of paper to legitimize my actions, that I'm always confident backing up my actions for whatever reason. But needless to say, in Manchester, New Hampshire, I was charged with 3 counts of felony wiretapping for recording police. Now, this is something I've done all across the country for years and years now, going 4 or 5 years. And it's not often that I'm actually investigating a story. I'm actually out in the street, filming a cop, asking my own questions to them. But in this case, I was previously arrested for using children's chalk on a police station in Manchester, New Hampshire, while we protested the beating of a guy by 4 off-duty cops at a local establishment. And since I was arrested for that incident, I was in town in Manchester trying to shed light on that and show the city of Manchester and the taxpayers how much of a waste of time their government was spending on prosecuting guys who use chalk. That while doing that, Pete and I were like handing out DVDs of Copblock, flyers. We were at the courthouse, we were at the schools, and we had given these 2 students a Copblock DVD that is at copblock.org/resources, and they watched it, were inspired by it, and just so happened to, a week later, one of the kids had a run-in with the police liaison officer, who ended up in this interaction grabbing the child by the hair, the 17-year-old kid, grabbing his arms behind his back and slamming him onto a table behind him. The good part of it was that the kid, having recently watched the CopBlock.org DVD, pulled out his iPod and filmed it. Through that video, they tried to find Pete and I, but we weren't around. We were out doing other things. So they went to the local news. That night, the news never aired a word or a second of that video. The two students found me later the following day, gave me the video. I shot a short interview with them, and then before releasing the video, I called the police liaison officer, ended up getting his captain. I called the principal and ended up talking to her secretary as well. All three of those individuals draw a paycheck from the city of Manchester, therefore making them public officials. When I called the public officials, I said, "My name is Ademo Freeman. I'm with CopBlock.org. I'm seeking comment about this incident." And all three of them told me I didn't know what I was talking about. Basically, played dumb. To one point, then, when I informed them that there was a video, abruptly ended the phone call with me because they had thought the video was deleted, and they thought they had scared the child with the expulsion or suspension to delete the video, but the kid had tricked them and deleted thumbnails that the video had created, and were actually just still shots. And so once I mentioned the video, it was very embarrassing. And so once I put this whole video online, the kids' interview, the actual event in the school, and the response by the public officials, it was a pretty damning case against the public officials for not only being fine with use of force against kids in a school, but willing to cover it up and threaten kids that they are doing things illegal by holding public officials accountable or filming in public space. Mind you, this cafeteria is under surveillance by the school already. It is on, their hallways have video cameras, their doors have video cameras, their cafeteria has video cameras. I guess to give a long story short, it was about a year before I ended up in trial on the matter, but it took 6 months for the internal investigation to be finished, because after all the news media found interest in the story, the police department did open an internal investigation, and after 6 months, they revealed that they were investigating 6 people, 3 public officials, the police officer involved, the principal, and the secretary, and then myself, the kid who filmed it, and the kid who was involved in it. The conclusion of their internal investigation was that no public official did anything wrong, but that Frank Harrington, the kid who was assaulted, was eventually expelled from school, and since that happened, no legal action needed to be taken against him. And the child who filmed it, Mike Prux, was expelled from school as well, and also later got into a fight, a teenage fight over a girl like most people have in high school. But since he was 17 and the cops knew him from gathering all this police attention for them, that they charged him with aggravated assault as an adult. And so they threw the book at us. Oh, and excuse me, they charged myself with 3 counts of felony wiretapping because I didn't explicitly say I am video and audio recording you while on the phone with them, which was a threat of 3.5 to 7 years in prison for each term. And I eventually went to trial on that, was found guilty after trying to plead. My defense was basically that public officials have no expectation of privacy, and a wiretapping law is only intended to protect those who do have an expectation of privacy. And the jury took 2 hours and 15 minutes to say, nope, you're guilty. And a judge sentenced me to 4 years in prison, suspended that sentence for 5 years of good behavior, 90 days in jail. And that's where I sit today. So I sat 92 days in jail. I was already in jail when the wiretapping trial happened because the chalking thing that I talked about, and another long story short, and another great battle with the state, which I think might help answer some of the questions that you guys showed me beforehand. But the state eventually mailed a letter to a wrong address, and therefore, since I didn't get the mail and show up for a trial, and I could prove that this address and this address doesn't exist and this letter wasn't sent to me, since I missed my trial, I was ordered to spend 60 days in jail to enact a sentence that was handed to me in district court without a jury trial. So I was already in jail serving that sentence, which is why that happened to me, because they knew it would be harder for me to prepare for jail, prepare for a felony wiretapping trial if I was in jail. Also, that it was probably a good chance that, if I ever felt the need, I could have just taken off and avoided risking 21 years of my life, but that's a little harder to do when you're already in jail.
Right. So, is there any movement on appeal or anything like that, or? Where are we
Yeah.
stand now?
My activism is, I try to strike the root as much as possible. Like I mentioned before, is that I don't need pieces of paper or governments or guys in costumes to um, legitimize that I have rights or what I'm doing is legal or right. I feel that I could always back up my actions on my own, and so my stance in court and stuff. And there is a question like of Mark Stevens on like, why don't I ask what do the facts like? Why do the facts have my opinion of law involved, and why does that apply to me? And I've gone into court and said like I haven't harmed anybody. I shouldn't be here, and I've tried to win in what I call the court of public opinion. I try to speak directly to the jurors and say, hey, even if this is a crime, even if this is wrong, for my wiretapping, for example, I told them 21 years in prison isn't what should happen. If I tried to ask the defendants, the people I harmed, that I wiretapped, what would if wiretapping to you is a crime that you are the victim of, then how can I make you whole? Not only were they not allowed to answer that, but one woman said that it made her feel. She did start to answer. She said it made her feel bad, and I reminded her that making her feel bad isn't against the law. And then when I asked her what she would like to do to make me whole, she started to think about it, and the judge told her she didn't have to answer that. And so the jury didn't get. If the jury would, if the principal would have said, "Give me $100," in the means or for the reason of showing that arbitration without the state could exist, I would have paid her $100. To show her that, hey, even though I don't agree with her, I don't want to go through this stuff. And if $100 gives her claim from me, then she's not going to run around saying I violated her. She's going to actually say it was paid transaction or whatever, and so be it. But the state decided that it would be something different. So I always try to speak my mind, but right now where the case holds is in an appeals, and that is something I cannot do. When you are taking the government to court, there are paperwork, deadlines, regulations, formats. I could spend 40 hours for a month every week working on this appeals and just put the period in the wrong place or the wrong date and have it all thrown out. So a guy stepped forward, Brandon Ross, and donors stepped forward to cover the transcript costs. So he's doing everything for free. It costs like $800 to get the transcript from my trial and all this paperwork. Generous people at Copblock.org donated for that. Brandon Ross is donating his time, and so now I've done my activism. He's going to try to do some of his end-of-system activism. And basically the case was supposed to be heard in front of the New Hampshire Supreme Court 2 months ago, but the state attorney keeps playing more black magic that I don't really understand, filing briefs and questions, and so it just keeps getting postponed. I'm actually surprised that they even decided to hear it, because the state, from its perspective, only loses by judging in my favor. And the question at hand is, for the appeals, I guess, which is important, is not only was I acting within my constitutional right, but I was subsequently charged with the felony law when New Hampshire has a misdemeanor version of wiretapping that actually applies to me. And the key part of that is the fact that I was a party to the conversation. Me and the officer were the only two people involved in the conversation. The felony version of wiretapping is if the principal and the cop were having a conversation, and I was secretly listening in as a third party to A and B's conversation. But yet, in fact, I was A or B or party 1 or 2 to the conversation. And therefore, it is only a misdemeanor. And through some of the comments from the attorney Michael Valentine is the state prosecutor who prosecuted me for the wiretapping, and through some of his and my conversations that we could have, because I was representing myself and that I documented, it could be argued that Michael Valentine was prosecuting me as a felony to punish me for my involvement in Copblock.org. He actually said in my closing statements that the reason he advocated a 1-year jail sentence that wasn't granted to him, it was given 90 days instead. But the reason why he advocated a 1-year jail sentence was not only to deter myself from doing these activities that I had done in the past, essentially holding police accountable. But he pointed to the courtroom full of people, but he said to deter those who think what I did was right. And so they were obviously trying to make a statement and an example out of me.
So I know New Hampshire is one of those weird states that in closing arguments the prosecution goes last, which isn't the case. Which isn't the case in a lot of states. And you think that's a huge hindrance because you're basically playing, crystal ball to try to figure out what they are going to say, and you have no rebuttal following those statements.
I used to be able to make a pretty solid argument for why that is so damning to the individual or the defendant who is on trial. I've come to the conclusion now that, it doesn't matter who opens first, the defendant or the state's attorney, or if I go last or they go last for the closing, because who starts the whole thing is the judge, the state, and who ends the whole thing is the judge and the state, no matter what. And I think more than the closing statements not being heard or the last words being heard from me last, but more damning to the fact that my jury forgets some parts of the important part of the trial is in the middle, and they cloud it with things in the beginning and the end. In the beginning, it's like, oh, you are going to be a juror. Have you ever done this? Have you ever done that? And you put the juror under the microscope. So it's like the state already threatens you. It's like anything else the state does. They at first let you know who's in control, so they pick apart the juror. Then they actually give you what you're here for, the jury, the questioning, and the state attorney a lot of the times will bring in evidence people and character witness or an expert, and that bores a jury. And then they get to closing statements, which is probably the best part of a jury, where people can really lay down emotions or feelings and reach out to a juror. But then the judge goes last, after no matter who goes last for closing statements, the judge. And in my case, it took him 45 minutes to tell the jury the law is the law, and if you go against the law, remember I'm the guy in the robe that sits higher than you, and just like I scrutinized you at the beginning of this, you could be in violation of my law if you don't follow the law. And they bore them and they break it down. And there was one juror during and this is my second wiretapping trial, the one in Manchester we're discussing, that was nodding off to sleep. And I wanted to stand up and be like, excuse me, whatever. But like I had mentioned before, it's a circus. I went in there to talk to the victims and try to make resolution with them. That wasn't allowed. I then went to plan B and tried to reach out to a juror, because in Massachusetts, when I was charged with wiretapping, one juror held his ground, and ultimately they only have 6-person juries in Massachusetts. There's 12 in New Hampshire, but also reversed the opinions of 5 other people. And he held his ground and said at one point, well, you guys can all say guilty, but I'm not changing my mind. And I'd like to explain to you one more time why, but we can be a hung jury. I think that's what happens a lot of times, if you could be a fly on the wall in these jury rooms, is that they take the initial vote, and if it's 8-4 or 10-2 in favor of guilty, whichever one it is, if the majority is that much, the other 2 or 4 are turning very quickly, because especially on multi-day trials, these people are paid $5 to maybe $20 a day. They might be provided a lunch from the local restaurant downtown if they're lucky, but if not, it's a bagged PB&J or ham and cheese sandwich. They're missing work. They want to get home as soon as possible. And so there's no justice to it. You got to find the diamond in the rough. If the only value, in my opinion, there is going into a courtroom anymore, is to do it for a camera, to inspire other people to say no and stand up. But folks should know that it'll come at a very high personal risk to the individual doing that. I may have shown a lot of people that the justice system is broke, and I think I'm done showing them that. And if anybody else wants to go ahead and show others that as well and inspire them again, more power to you. Every video, as long as it gets one person to wake up, it's worth it to me. But it's always a subjective value.
Well, hopefully now it's reaching out to the people who end up on the jury, so they're already informed before going in. That seems to be the next logical step to attack. That's
almost like a recon operation in itself, because jury pools, here's a tidbit of information, they are pulled from voter registrations. And so none of my friends are voters. And so getting one of those people on there is asking for a lot. But I hear you. There's many ways. I mean, the juror that ended up helping me get myself and Peter, the co-founder of CopBlock.org, um, not guilties in Massachusetts. What did it for him was he said he saw a sign before the trial that some of our friends were holding that said 5 years just for filming, and that stuck with him the whole time, which is why he actually thought we wiretapped the person, but he didn't think we did it intentionally, the willful aspect. And so he did not want to give us a felony and send us to prison for 5 years of our life because we made a mistake in a law that is very complicated. And so that was his reasoning. So he basically did jury nullification without knowing what jury nullification was.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is anybody's only hope. Because he's a voter. He thinks he's a Democrat. He was happy Obama got elected. You know, we have no mutual ground other than we made a good point of please think for yourself here. And some of the activism outside the courtroom caught his eye. So,
mm-hmm. So you've been staying a little low since you got out. Is there a reason for that, or are you just kind of recharging batteries, or?
Well, I mean, there's a mix. I'm tired. You know, I did have an idea of like cop block protection, and I still think that is one of my best ideas I've probably ever come up with. But you know, part of becoming a big decentralized organization is that I get to take some criticism too, and I was surprised at some of the criticism I got from existing CopBlock.org chapters. And again, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but that's not what made me pull out. What made me pull out of stink is that, sure, even though there's criticism now and these are things I don't have to deal with, I believe in this and that I know it would be successful. And just, you know, what have I done to this point is I founded a website and put together some pieces of a puzzle that have made a popular blog. That's basically all it is a popular blog that people can share things to, and other folks have taken onto their own in their own areas. And that ended me with a 4-year prison sentence hanging over my head, 92 days of my life lost, and a bullseye on my back. And so CopBlock.org protection could be something great, but I have no interest in being the bullseye anymore. I'll blog or do some things when I can, but yeah, basically I'm trying to shrink my circle to be more local and personally rewarding than having this big impact of, like, you know, trying to hold every police officer in the country accountable, because that's how I felt, or that's what I felt needed to be done, or how I had to do. And so it's a mix of things. It's a mix of, like, the next step to me is a very dangerous step. It is replacing the institution of protection, and cop block protection would essentially do that on a small scale with blogging and social media to provide protection for people who have police interactions. But it would ultimately could evolve to become home protection, consultation services, camera service installations, and eventually we could start hiring police officers if folks really want to pay for that type of service, minus the jackboot thug kicking in doors, holding cities into martial laws type stuff. Actually providing protection, safety, defense, one-on-one interactions and counseling, and things like that. And so that's, in my opinion, the next step. We all know, or should know, there's definitely enough information out there to make a solid argument to somebody who is skeptical that the justice system, the police system, the government itself is all broke. It's going to fail. It's going to get very bad. And the next step is to replace the systems they have in place. And so you got to compete with them all. And so hopefully, you know, I've taken a job with a silver company that is liberty-minded, silver, sound money, no FRNs, and hopefully it can evolve and maybe start up a protection agency company. And so that's where I'm going to focus my time, is just creating the alternatives. CopBlock.org is something I'm happy to be part of. I'll be part of it, you know, until the day my heart stops beating. I mean, I'm probably the only person with it tattooed on my arm, so at this point. But it's something I'm very proud of, and the biggest thing I'm proud of is that it exists without my efforts or abilities at all. And you know, like you guys doing this show, Pete running the site, Kate manages the store and shares editing capabilities with Jen. Jen is somebody I found randomly through Twitter, you know, 4 years ago, and now we have this friendship. There's got to be close to 100 or so. It seems like every time I turn, other groups around. And so the fact that this thing exists on its own and that I can duck in and out whenever it may be makes me, even happier that it doesn't, it just doesn't die when when we stop working on it. Motorhome Diaries, when the RV stopped traveling, the project stopped. Liberty on Tour, Derek J is doing some of that stuff now, but it's great to see that things can go on without having to, spend much effort into it.
Yeah, I just want to express my gratitude to you because what you went through in New Hampshire, I was already coming back to New Hampshire, but once basically the day your wiretapping trial ended is the day I'm like, all right, I'm just going to get active now. I'm not even going to wait to get to New Hampshire to do it. So that's kind of what spurred me to just say, screw it, I'm just going to go for it and take part until I get there. And I didn't even know that I was going to be out there this soon. I wasn't expecting to be out there until sometime in 2014, but I'm going to be out there sooner. So that's what got me. That's what kind of flipped the switch and said, just go, because if you don't do it, then it's going to take forever.
I mean, I have no regrets. I knew every time that I walked into a courtroom that I could be going to a jail cell, or that every time I interacted with a cop that I could be tased, beaten, or worse. And so, I've done these things, and to me now it's just about risk versus reward. I don't regret any of it, but at this point, I don't want to end up like, Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree is a great documentary, and it's a great video to show what happens if you start catching a lot of charges. And so let this thing settle out. I work on some other stuff and see what happens. I'm always sharing stories, Copblock's feed, talking. I do sometimes guest spots on Free Talk Live, and we talk about copblock.org and other things. And so it'll always be around and existent. And so just hearing that folks like yourself are inspired to do more or become active, that's what makes it all worthwhile. And folks who want to, being active in whatever degree you can, if that's just sharing social network stories or doing whatever, or talking to the neighbors about it, that's great too. But moving and living around other like-minded people, the Free State Project here in New Hampshire is one example. There's an Austin community. There's a North Carolina group. New Hampshire's is, in my opinion and experience, and I've been to a lot of them, the biggest and the most effective. But that's taking a big step to say, I'm down to, have freedom in our lifetime, and that's basically what we're trying to do here.
Adam, you got anything?
Oh yeah, basically the same thing as you. There's the gratitude. I think I've told you before, Ademo, that whole entire story is what inspired me. I mean, it was before you even went to trial and any of that. It was the story of you helping the two kids out and it blowing out of proportion like it did is what truly inspired me to start off Spokane Copblock and get active and do that. I mean, I've been watching you guys for about a year and a half prior to that. It was that story that really got me going to actually do something and start up a local chapter, and then it turned into this with Eric.
That's great, man. And who knows where it goes from here, man.
Yeah.
Folks will see your guys' radio show. I don't know if either one of you plans to or will or has attended Pork Fest and stuff, but, you go to these Liberty conferences and stuff, and people will be like, hey, you guys are the CopBlock radio guys. And, that's the reward you get, I guess. I guess the Robin Hooding thing is getting really big in New Hampshire here. And so one of the guys that was there, I don't really want to call him out or something, was like, oh, I thought I would have got more airtime or something like that and stuff. And I was like, well, if you're in the business, if you're in this to get famous or rich, like, you picked the wrong job. Like, the payments, the rewards are folks who are like, hey, I moved here watching you, or like you guys said, I start this because, I felt inspired. And so, like, that's the payment. That's what you get. You're not going to get the TV series like The Cop Show or Reno 911, and we're not going to get all of Good Morning America's time, but we are going to inspire folks, and people are going to move, and we're going to take the next steps in actually having a voluntary society, which is what I envision. I guess I can't speak for everybody.
No, I think that feels better anyway. That's that gratitude you get from people, and it makes you feel good about yourself that you did help someone else out. I think that's a better feeling than money any day of the week.
Sure. Don't get me wrong, though, man. The trolls, I don't know how many emails, man. Like, I edited Copblock nonstop for a year straight, and every hate mail letter came to me, and so I mean, I still get them, but I mean, some cop, like one time when Pete and I were in Mississippi and we were pulled over there, and Pete was charged with possession of a beer in a dry county, and I got a disorderly conduct for filming the police. That was my first arrest, actually, for filming the police in 2009. And we were back there, and just before we came back to Jones County, Mississippi, they're like, some cop, we sent it from the police station, we could trace it. And they said, you know what happened to the last activist that came down here to Mississippi? And so they were basically threatening us, it was just a random email, no big deal, but we knew that this came from the police station. So it was like, great, and so what do you say? We got to go back because your court date, and we're going to make a point out of it. But we just responded, hey, that's cool. We sleep at Walmart parking lots, the building with the big cameras on it, and we have cameras ourselves. So if you want to come shoot Marv up with bullet holes, you're going to do it on camera. You want to go in and clear out Walmart too, because that's what it's going to take. And nobody messed with us, so whatever.
So one of the questions we got was, have you had any luck discussing issues with the ACLU?
Well, it's good that I just brought up Mississippi then. Twice we've gotten all the way through the intake process with the ACLU, and that's where an ACLU rep pretty much here's your case. They have a legal background and pretty much preps you up to hand you off to a lawyer, and pretty much they don't take anybody through that process. They pretty much know you're going to get a case when that happens. And twice, it was in Mississippi and Massachusetts for our wiretapping. The ACLU was totally on board, and then for some reason, after meeting with the attorney, something happens, they stay, and they're just like, we can't represent you. We're never really given a reason. I have a theory that we are on some blacklist, that because Pete and I self-describe as anarchists, which is a tainted term these days, I would more accurately probably define as a voluntarist, or pretty much anyone who I believe that everyone should be able to live their life as long as they don't initiate force on anybody else. And so while the ACLU is all about us in the intake process, they shun us at some point down the road. I don't know if they get a word from somebody else or whatever, but the reason why I'm convinced that happens is because the first case I was like, okay, maybe this happens. The second case was in Greenfield, Massachusetts, and if anyone wants to go to copblock.org/Greenfield, GREENFIELD, they can review this story. But Pete and I were arrested for wiretapping for filming a cop outside of a jail in Greenfield, Massachusetts, publicly filming him with cameras, and that was in 2010. In 2007, a woman by the name of Peyton was filming an anti-war protest, and she was filming some cops who came to arrest a protester who climbed on top of a sign. The ACLU, she was charged with the exact same charges Pete and I were charged with. Wiretapping, disorderly conduct, and trespassing. The same exact three charges. The ACLU came to her aid in 2007 and helped her get the charges dismissed, and she went on to have a successful lawsuit against the Greenfield Police Department. The ACLU, the same office, the same attorney that helped Peyton, got us all the way through the intake process, started to file paperwork for us, and the day before it was supposed to be stamped and approved and filed with the court, decided he was no longer interested. And so just a really weird thing to happen with it was a mirrored case. It was the exact same police department, the exact same charges. 3 years later, ACLU could have filed the exact same paperwork and ended our ordeal in 30 days. Instead, Pete and I went through a year-long trial and got a lucky juror, which is probably the only reason why I'm not in prison right now.
You got anything else?
I mean, they're lawyers, sure, they do some good things. I don't want to say that everything they do is bad. Some people do whatever, but, at the end of the day, they're negotiators. I don't think I'm involved in every incident I'm accused of a crime in, and so who can explain it better than the person who was there? Lawyers can do some legal mumble jumble. I mean, a good example is the Rich Paul hearing. I don't know if many people are familiar with Rich Paul, marijuana activist / drug dealer, marijuana dealer. And
yeah, we've been talking about it almost every week we've done this show.
Right. So the folks are familiar with it, and so his attorney, public defender, great arguments on jury nullification, but still had to dance around too much of the law. Never got to mention that Rich was facing 81 years in prison, because if she did, she loses her bar association. She never works as a lawyer for the public defender's office in her job ever again. She never gets a private practice. Same with ACLU lawyers. Everybody who has a bar license is not only first vetted before people who already own possess a bar license, but that is also dangled over their head and how they can defend you. Rich's counsel couldn't ask the snitch if he was providing him voluntary, goods, and that if he was happy with his service, but Rich could have. I'm not saying the jury would hear that and find him innocent, but they're just pointing out that they are hampered by some things that others are not. And so the same goes for anybody, including the ACLU.
Yeah, that seems to be something that a lot of people don't think about, is that even the defense lawyers are still beholden to the state to be able to have a job.
Right. That's why most of them are they're negotiators. Don't call them lawyers. They're negotiators. If you want to take a deal, hire the most expensive lawyer you can find because he has the best friends. He'll grease the right pockets, and you'll get the least sentence possible. That's how you play the system. Everybody knows it. Football players, movie stars, they don't go to jails, and if they do, they go to country clubs because they have money, they pay the right wheels, they grease the right thing. If that's your goal, great. Go for it. If you want to make a liberty message or a statement or whatever, go in there and say, like I have plenty of times to a judge, I'd look at the judge and I'm here as a person. If someone says I did some wrong, let's have a conversation. They keep asking me if I know the rules and procedures. I'm like, I absolutely do not know your rules and procedures. No way. Both these people to my right and in front of me spent, 20 years in schooling, and they still go and grab books to read what's going on. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. But I'm very well capable of explaining myself and my actions, and I'm more than willing to do that. That's all I need. I don't need to pay $25,000 for a lawyer to do that.
You got any other questions you want to ask, or we can actually move on to some stories here?
No, I'm fine. Yeah.
All right. So you want to stay with us throughout the show, or you got to jump off? Or
how long does the show go for you after this?
Probably about an hour and 15.
When we finish the stories.
Okay. Well, I'll probably jump off because I got to work in the morning. But I appreciate the time, and I love what you guys do here, and keep fighting the good fight. I really appreciate it as well. So mutual respect and admiration.
All right. Thanks a lot. That's been Ademo, the founder of Copblock. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Ademo.
So yeah, that was great. It was good to hear from him, and that he still seems to have the I can't even say the word right now. Activist itch.
Yes, there you go. Good description there.
Yep. So a few things. We seem to always come back to these stories every week, is people getting arrested for filming the police or
We had a big talk about that last week, didn't we?
I know. We should just make this the Photography is Not a Crime podcast, because half the time that's where all these stories are coming from. Maybe we should call Carlos Miller. We should have him on. That'd be awesome. But
that's what we should do. We should get a hold of Carlos and bring him on.
All right. So we have a few. We have out of Los Angeles, we had an LAPD officer assault a motorcyclist who is recording, I believe it was his own traffic stop.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah, just like his phone.
Yeah. So he's recording with his phone, and the officer walked towards him, and then he walked away back to the car. I think he did that one more time, and then he comes back. He's like, "Put down the phone," blah blah blah, and he's like, and then he attacks him. He says, "You are being," and then it stops.
Yeah, you can see it looks like the cop goes for the phone, tries to grab it from him. The normal, "I'm gonna shut your camera off for you because you're not listening to me." That whole move is what it looks like. I mean, we've seen that move so many times. So you see the hand come right at the camera.
And then we had out of New York, Christina Gonzalez. For some reason, that name rings a bell to me. Is she one of the people involved with Cop Watch in that area?
I don't know. I could search.
I don't think this is the first time I've heard of this name, and I didn't realize it until I just read it right now. But
is that the one with the deleted footage? Correct.
No. This is actually funnier.
No, different one.
Yeah, she was at a New York City checkpoint. Apparently, is over the bridge that connects the Bronx and Harlem. And she was just out there recording and asking questions. And they said it was a vehicle safety checkpoint. And she's like, "Who's safety?" And then he's like, "I'm not going to talk to you." And so they were filming, and she just keeps kind of peppering them with questions. Is something wrong? Is something going on? Is everybody okay? Da 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 da. And then eventually the officer asks her for ID, and since she hasn't done anything wrong, she has no obligation to give him ID. And that's where it starts to go all downhill from there. And the cop then pretty much assaults her, and, grabs her arm and knocks stuff out of her hand because she wouldn't hand over ID at his beck and call. And then she posted on YouTube that they were arrested.
Didn't they get held for like 20-something hours or something too?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Well, one of the funniest things is that they tried to confiscate SD cards. They took the wrong one. They didn't take the one with the actual footage. So that was the description.
That is entertaining there.
That was the description on the YouTube video, was you stole the wrong SD card. And then she wrote that they were arrested at a checkpoint at the bridge, and that they were charged with OGA, which OGA is obstructing government administration, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest, which, of course, those three are they probably just have that permanently written on the form, because it seems like everybody gets those charges whenever they're arrested.
It's just there, yeah.
Yeah, it's just there. It's always there. It's like, oh, remember to put this on the form. And
check mark that box.
so, of course, they weren't doing any of this, and they had, I think this might have been Carlos who followed up on this, that a New York attorney said, generally, if you impair or obstruct administration of law or prevent a public servant from performing his or her official duties or functions, then you have committed this crime. However, the crucial element to this is that you are intentionally obstructing being done through either intimidation, interference, physical force, or any other independent unlawful act, which she was engaging in a perfectly legal and lawful act of simply asking questions.
I Google searched her name really quick for you. Yeah, you probably have heard her name before. It looks like she's been involved in many other things. Activist that has participated in trying to get the stop and frisk stuff stopped in New York. So quite a few articles I found up real quick. So yeah, you're right there. You recognized it, yep.
So this is the same person. When she started talking, I thought I had seen videos of her before, and I'm like, oh, I love this lady, because she's just nonstop asking questions, and I love what she does. Yeah. So they were held for 25 hours.
That's crazy.
Before they were let go.
Under what grounds? I mean,
yeah,
how do you get away with holding someone for 25 hours?
Right. It was the obstructing government administration, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest. So I'm assuming this happened on a weekend too. So
probably
they probably held her over. So yeah, and there's actually somebody had sent a snippet from the NYPD patrol guide that was effective on January 1st of 2000, so it would be effective still today. And that the heading is "Observers at the Scene of Police Incidents." As a rule, when a police officer stops, detains, or arrests somebody in the public, persons who happen to be in or attached to the area are naturally in a position and are allowed to observe. And then farther on it said, no time should they be arrested or...
A person remaining in the vicinity of a stop or arrest shall not be subject to arrest for obstructing government administration.
Right, so she was arrested for something that is explicitly laid out in their own guide that they can't be arrested for. So, go figure. I mean, that tends to be the case. And then following up on a story that we had talked about, I think it was last week, out of Baltimore, where the lady was filming, and then she was beaten. There's more that came out in the lawsuit about what happened, and it says despite the officers, despite the pleas of the plaintiff, refused to call the plaintiff's mother, which is the lady who was beaten up and taken out of her car. Instead, the officers tormented the plaintiff by telling her that her daughter would be taken from her and sent to social services, and then seeing the plaintiff's distressful reaction to the tormenting threats, they continued. And it's just sickening what these people have done to this lady. They basically tormented her while they arrested her for simply video recording a
obvious abuse of police power. I mean, she was doing the right thing in the first place. I mean, she was recording an incident where the police were beating someone. If I remember, that's the correct story, right? Isn't it? She was recording them for beating someone.
Yeah, and then they got the she was charged with assault on the officer, which she didn't do, and of course resisting arrest. Which, if you're yanking somebody by your hair, your natural reaction is to pull away from that.
I have the right to defend myself.
Yeah, and she claims that the officer actually failed to appear at her trial twice, which is why the prosecutors had to drop the charges, and then she hired a lawyer and spent money on recovering her impounded car. So there's more coming out about the Baltimore police not being or being a little heavy-handed in their enforcement of non-laws.
Yes. Completely.
So I guess that's our segment of this week in filming the police.
Yeah, there you go.
So you had a crazy story that you posted. That was the first post that you put in our prep this week. You want to talk about that?
All right. So, this is a 10-year-old boy one, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So basically here, it's actually here in Washington. I don't remember which county. But basically on the West Coast. Trying to see if I can find which county it was again.
Seattle. It says Seattle.
Seattle? Was it? Okay. I just couldn't remember if the boy was actually in Seattle or one of the surrounding towns or not. But basically, yes. Okay, so we have a 10-year-old boy that was arrested earlier this year and sentenced, it would have been, last week now? To 5.5 years in a juvenile detention center for his role in a plot to rape and kill a girl from his school, which blows my mind. I know it probably blows your mind too, Eric. It's a 10-year-old little boy. I mean, I have children myself, and I could never even fathom that at 10. I don't think I could have ever fathomed that at 10 years old myself. But basically, from the multiple articles I've read on this story, which are ones that you don't have, Eric, later, is that basically, I don't know if they conned him into convincing it, or if he actually, or conned him into to saying he did it, but basically it's come out that he has admitted to it, that he was fully involved and had every full intention to murder and or rape this girl at his school. I guess he was stopped. Somebody obviously spewed the beans, and the two boys were stopped on their way to school and had a pistol and a knife in their backpacks and had every intention of raping and killing this little girl, and they also had a list of multiple other students that they had planned on hurting or killing, don't know exactly. Mind blowing in my brain. I can't imagine a 10-year-old doing something like this. It baffles me.
Yeah, this article right at the bottom says that they had a 1911 pistol, and he had also packed ammunition and a knife.
Yeah.
Which they were stopped shortly after they boarded the bus. A fourth grade student happened to spot the knife and reported it to a teacher's aide.
Yeah. I don't like condoning ratting someone out, but in that situation where it's needed, good job to the other little kid. But I mean, I really wanted to approach this story as a more for the viewers that are watching this. Is what is your take on this? I mean, really, I mean, obviously the kids admitted to it. I don't know if this is the media portraying this as such a way, or if they conned him into talking this. There's no way without talking to the little boy and finding out the truth. But what are your guys' opinions on this? What has caused this 10-year-old boy to do something like this and want to even attempt to do something like this at 10 years old? I can't understand why a 10-year-old would want to even do something like that.
And a follow-up question is if this is all true, what is the appropriate response?
Mm-hmm.
Is the appropriate response to lock him away and send him to juvie?
Should we put him in jail for 5.5 years, or should there be something more positively done?
Yeah, some sort of treatment or counseling or something like that. I mean, this kid's 10 years old. Mental development is not exactly at a premium at this particular.
You put him in there until he's 15. He comes out at 15, full of hormones. He's not going to know what to do with himself.
I know, it's going to be even worse. Yeah, now you're just making it worse because.
Yeah, when he comes out, he's going to be coming out in testosterone-fueled rage. Is this what we really want? Do we want to lock him up for 5 years and have him come out all full of testosterone and in a raging fit?
Yeah, have him spend his developmental years, essentially behind bars. I mean, that just seems kind of asinine
to his mind. I mean, this is going to alter his mind. He's not going to be the same person when he comes out at all. I mean, let alone, I don't know what type of person he was to begin with, but I can assume he's like most 10-year-old little boys. He may have been confused and not knowing what he was doing was correct, but it's going to screw with his head.
Yeah, or just frustrated, and he just didn't realize what the appropriate response was to whatever he was dealing with. And this seems, to me personally, it seems excessive, so I'm curious to find out what others think about the particular.
Yeah, I want to know too. I want to know what you guys think about this, your opinion on it, and what you think should be done. So you guys put it down in the comments below, and we will respond respectfully to them.
All right, so we have an article coming out of where was this? The Long Island Press. I haven't looked into too heavily on who they are specifically. But anyways, they had a pretty long article about the military slightly changing an already existing regulation in the U.S. Code titled Defense Support of Civilian Law Enforcement Agencies. And from what they've changed, it sounds like they have granted themselves essentially the ability to police the streets without prior local or state consent in the event of emergency. This obviously is a response to Boston, but I'm sure they've been trying to get this in here for forever, because that's just kind of what they do, considering that over the past 30 years there's been such a huge militarization of our police forces that it seems only logical that this would be their next step, is to essentially intertwine civilian law enforcement with military on U.S. soil, essentially. So one of the parts in here, this is specific wording out of the rules, says that federal military commanders have the authority in extraordinary emergency circumstances, which this is my subtext. Katrina, anyone? Where
well, you want to bring up Katrina? I got some interesting info for you.
All right, we'll finish this up. So it says, in extraordinary emergency circumstances where prior authorization by the president is impossible, so they can go unilaterally without the president even being involved in the decision. That's great. And duly constituted local authorities. So basically, the president and local authorities don't have to be on board. If they are unable to control the situation, I'm not sure who decides that, and engage in temporary activities that are necessary to quell large-scale, unexpected civil disturbances. That seems slightly vague on what they can actually authorize military action for on U.S. soil without the consent of the local authorities or the president.
I thought each state was supposed to have its own militia.
Well, they're supposed to.
That's what the Constitution says.
And every state is the ultimate authority over their state, but obviously,
yeah, it's unions. Remember, we're unions. Came together as one. Well, not completely as one. We're supposed to be separate, but that's no longer working anymore, obviously.
Yeah. So this is just kind of scary that this has not been the case for 100 years, that the military, it works for the civilian population. They don't work against the civilian population.
Mm-hmm.
They work for us, not the other way around. So this, who knows what will come out of this. I know there's a lot of people interested in dealing with this, and I know the ACLU is already up in arms about the whole thing. So
yeah,
we might see some additional legal action taken against this particular directive that pretty much gives them free reign over U.S. soil on doing whatever they want to do.
Yeah, which I'm not okay with.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm not okay with it.
No, I mean, you look at the police now. This article brings up that you see a lot of police departments have switched from wearing blue to black, which is obviously it's tied to more like special ops type of attire that you would see, and
no longer looks like a peace officer.
Right, exactly. They used to wear press shirts, and they looked at least like a formal,
professional. Yeah.
And now they all have
they look like thugs and gang members
with military tanks that they're disposed.
Yes, that's right.
Armored vehicles.
No longer peaceful, nice-looking officers. They're intimidating, scary-looking gentlemen with guns.
Yeah, and this is just going to make it worse. I mean, the police department has been hiring so many, police departments around the country have been hiring so many ex-military that have been in combat. They come back, and now they're on the streets of the United States acting as if they were still in war, and now the civilian population is the enemy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is a scary thought there.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't have anything against military guys coming back and getting jobs, but I don't always agree that it's good for them to go into a police job.
Yeah, it's probably it's not a very good fit, because you're basically, as military, you're turned up to 10, and you need to dial it back when you get home, and that could be hard.
I'm sure it makes them feel more comfortable, and I understand that. They want to get back into that routine, and it makes them feel good to be a part of something like that, but I just don't think it's the healthiest of positions for them to put themselves in, at least and as our benefit. Yeah.
So we've talked, I think, in the past about red light cameras and whatnot, and we came up with a interesting story out of Florida.
Yes, this is an interesting story. I watched the videos, read the whole articles, and you know it's even more interesting. I mean, we'll go over this first. I'll bring it up after that. But basically, what we have in Tampa Bay, they have basically shortening the times on the yellow lights. And I mean, it's by a very, very small amount, but that small amount actually affects and will cause you to get a red light ticket. Obviously, is incredibly revenue oriented. I mean, they in the article, the news media place that has this article up has reached out to the city and the municipality and asked them if it was revenue generated, wanted to be revenue generated, and they've denied, of course, that it's not about revenue at all. It's about safety, and really they've done all these studies and proven, and the news agency showed them that actually lengthening the yellow light times actually reduces people from running the red light and improves safety on the general public, and they're shortening these times. So actually you're risking people's lives and revenue generating at the same time.
Yeah, one of the things that always comes up is that I would be interested to see, which I wish I had offhand now, but I'd be interested to see the accidents that took place at a particular intersection, and then after putting in the red light camera, seeing what accidents happened after that. Because I'm sure the reason they might have put up the red light camera is because there have been a lot of accidents at that particular intersection of people running red lights. But now I'm interested to see how many accidents are at that intersection from rear ends, from rear-ending the person who slammed the brakes to avoid getting.
Oh yeah. Well, not only that, I mean, they've got the numbers on here. What they said, Florida's state revenue last year, $100 million from red light cameras. $100 million. That's insane. That is a huge amount of money for red light tickets. I mean, these are people that are obviously getting red light tickets and just paying them, not questioning it, because it's what, like $120 fine, and so to get $100 million, that's a lot of tickets.
Well, that's like 1 million tickets.
Yeah, and basically, yeah, almost is.
$100 a piece.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. And then they're talking about the fact that what, I don't remember, they had it in the video, the actual percentage of what that's actually going to bring it up to now, because they're shortening the red lights and how many more extra tickets they're going to get. So it's obvious it's revenue motivated.
Yeah,
it's going to like double their revenue they're making from it.
It says last year that they made $100 million on revenue, and actually 52% of the revenue goes to the state.
Yep.
So obviously they're interested in.
Yeah, so the state itself, not just each municipality, it's the state is wanting their cut too, because they're getting 50% of it right off the top.
Yeah, and then it says in 2013 the cameras are on pace to generate 120 million. So 20 million more than last year.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. And then they were talking about in the video that the news article has, is the fact of how much money these the camera companies that make these red light cameras, how much money they're dumping into lobbying to push to get these put in everywhere. It's insane how much money they're putting into this. I mean, these, obviously I understand their business, they're wanting to make money, wanting to make profits, but literally they're deriving their profits from stealing from the general public in a sense. I mean, really.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are just insanely short. Like, if they had...
I don't think my reaction time's that fast.
Right, and especially if it's in a higher speed zone. I mean, you are talking about you need a lot more time in a high speed zone because you have a much longer stopping distance that you can safely do it. And like you said at the beginning, the real way to prevent accidents and bring up safety is to extend the yellow time so people have that time to slow down, or you can also lengthen the overlap, because I know there's a lot of places now. It's not like it goes red and then the other one goes green instantaneously. It's
well,
not
there's
like
supposed
that.
to be a
There's
delay there. There's supposed to. I've seen some that there aren't though. We have some here in our town here in Spokane that don't. There it's an instant swap, and it's like that's dangerous.
Right. So I mean that's where you can increase safety, is you increase the yellow, and or you increase the delay, so the intersection can be cleared before the next line of traffic goes, and get rid of these stupid cameras, because the cameras are actually probably causing more fender benders than were happening prior to it, because now people are slamming on their brakes to avoid these tickets.
Afraid of flying through that intersection, or afraid that they're going to get a ticket, so they slam on their brakes. It's like a scare tactic almost.
Right. So you get these unnatural, tendencies of stopping way short, and panic, because it's like that $120. That's crazy. I mean, for essentially what is a victimless crime of not slamming your brakes. Not slamming your brakes is apparently a crime in Florida these days. And there's a lot of
their main argument, though, I mean, in the news article, they talk about their main argument is the fact that they're shortening them because people get too used to the yellow lights being that long, and they get comfortable with it. So if we lengthen the yellow ones, they'll get comfortable with that, too, and they'll still be running red lights. So I'm like, no.
Yeah. I mean,
everybody's going to get comfortable with the amount of time no matter what. It doesn't matter if you shorten it or lengthen it. People are going to get comfortable. So either way, that argument doesn't work.
Right. And if you lengthen it, you're at least erring on the side of caution, because most people, they know roughly how long the light's going to be, especially if they're like a local. But out of people who are not from the area, they know at least how much stopping distance they need at various speeds, and there's no need to suddenly make everybody into criminals for basically not succumbing to your unnecessarily short lights. Yeah.
That was what ours here is in Spokane here. Our red light cameras that we have are actually don't go on your driving record. So here is obvious revenue generating, because you literally, if you pay the fine, it doesn't go on your record.
Right.
At all. They're just like, oh, if you pay the fine, we won't even act like it ever happened. You just pay us some money.
Well, this is
so
the point.
That's obviously not trying to protect drivers and make people drive better. You just want money.
Well, this is going to have to be the point where I pimp New Hampshire again, because it's actually red light cameras and speed cameras are illegal.
Oh, yeah.
So there are none in the state of New Hampshire. And I think they're the only state that has red light cameras as being something that cannot be put up anywhere else.
Well, the interesting part is I've actually heard some arguments here from a couple of local people here. I don't know how reliable these arguments are, but I've heard that supposedly our red light cameras here in Spokane are actually video cameras, not a camera taking a still image. It's a video camera, and they pull that video and take a still out of the video and use it as the camera, per se, the still picture, and then send you that still. Well, from understanding the way our state law sits, what was it? The state law is they can't use the video evidence as evidence against you unless a crime has actually been committed. Well, technically, with the way they're doing it and not putting it on your record, it's not a crime, and it's basically it turns into like a thought crime, because unless they have an officer sitting there watching the whole time, there's no way to prove that you actually committed that crime, unless you're taking video, and then therefore by taking the video, I don't remember exactly how the argument sits, but basically, from what I understand, you can get out of any red light ticket in the city of Spokane because of the fact that they're doing it incorrectly with the way the law sits.
Yeah, well, there's also a recent article of how to get out of the red light tickets and speeding tickets, and it's just
there's many ways.
respond with a letter stating, you'd like to face your accuser and all this stuff because the camera's not going to come in and testify against you.
Yeah. Prove it was me driving, and who's going to come and prove it was me driving?
Right.
Yeah. The camera's not going to do it, so unless you had an officer sitting up in that little box, I'm sorry.
Of course, they could always pull out the good old, I'm sure a lot of states have this particular law, that you're responsible for your car.
Yeah.
So I know that happens with parking tickets. Parking tickets, well, you're responsible for your car regardless of who put your car there.
Yeah.
So speaking of parking tickets, this has been just blowing up everywhere, and I'd be surprised if the people who are watching this don't already know about this. But in the city of Keene, New Hampshire, there's a group of people who call themselves Robin Hood and his merry men, and they go around walking in front of the parking enforcement officers who are checking meters, and if there's an expired meter, they pop a coin in there before the parking enforcement officer can see it and write a ticket. Obviously, at this point, they have been quite successful at it because they have been doing it almost every single day for the past 6 months. And every time they save somebody from a ticket, they stick a card on the person's windshield saying that they had been
saved. Yeah.
Saved from the king's tariffs.
Yep.
And at this point, they have saved at least 4,000 people from a parking ticket, which the city's obviously not happy with because they're missing out on all this.
The city is furious.
They're missing out on all this revenue. So a ticket's roughly $5 times 40,000. You do the math. They've so far saved $20,000 from going to the city, minus the 5 cents that they had to pop into the because they still got that money. But still, they have now been hit with a lawsuit saying that the naming 6 individuals that they are harassing the parking enforcement, and they want to establish a 50-foot safety zone where around the parking enforcer.
Yes.
Which is kind of funny. And in the affidavits of some of the parking enforcement officers, there's only like 1 or 2 people who actually come up, and like the other 4 are never mentioned, and then one of them who is mentioned is only mentioned in a positive light. So, and this is actually a civil action that they're taking. So they're claiming harassment, which is a criminal offense, but they're not going after them in criminal court. So that right there tells me that
it's about the revenue.
It's about the they have no case in either civil or criminal, because if they had a criminal, they would have brought criminal charges against these people. So
well, it's funny. Wasn't one of the testimonies of one of the parking enforcers? Wasn't it? They said something like they didn't want to come back to their job, and I'm just like, well, then don't. I remember I was reading one of them, and it was something along those lines where they're like, it's not that I don't feel safe, it's just I don't get why I'm doing this because I don't even write any tickets. And I'm like, well, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Duh, you just answered your own question.
I mean, so somebody posted on one of the articles, and I responded to it, but they're like, well, we don't go around, I don't like Walmart, but I don't go around harassing their employees. I'm like, that's completely different, because the parking enforcement is your employee, because you're being forced at gunpoint to fork over your tax dollars to pay for these people to do what they're doing. So in essence, they're actually your employee. They're not a private company's employee. They're a city employee, and that elevates them to a higher level of scrutiny because they are paid for with stolen money. So.
Well, I don't know about you. I like to mess with Walmart employees. No, it's entertainment. No, I'm joking. I don't mess with Walmart employees.
So, and it was really funny. Somebody pointed out that in the hiring guidelines for the position, it said that you would have to deal with.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the exact wording offhand.
I
But
remember
you'd
that.
have to deal with harassment.
You're gonna have to deal with unhappy people, harassment, and what do they say, like derogatory names and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, well, then that fits right in with what those guys are complaining about. It's your job description says you're gonna have to deal with that, so quit whining.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But if they want this to stop, all they would have to do is turn over all these parking spaces to the businesses that are using them, so they can facilitate their parking as they see necessary. I mean, we were just talking about, well, every Walmart I've ever gone to provide their own parking, and they maintain their own parking lot.
Just fine, yeah.
So why are these people exempt, and why does the public have to pay for their parking spots when they should be either working together or providing their own parking for their customers? So,
but then who would pave the roads? I'm sorry. I had to. You reminded me so much of that.
I know that article just came up. Is like, well, the people are going. The people want roads. The people will build roads. Yeah, so people build in this case, the businesses want parking because they want customers.
They'll deal with the parking then. Yeah.
They'll build parking.
Yep. We don't need the city to do it for us.
Yeah, I mean, even in Keene, where we're talking about, there was a local business who, on their own, contracted out a parking study.
Okay.
So it's not like these people. It's not like you have to have the city doing this for you. The businesses already know that they need to do something about the parking, and why are they relying on the city to do it when they could easily just get together as, you know, a group and voluntarily figure out the problem instead of going through all these bureaucracies and spending way more money than necessary. Because I know the stores downtown are taxed like crazy, way more than other areas of the city. They have like a surtax just for all this stuff. So I mean, if they didn't have to pay the surtax, I'm sure they could figure out parking on their own. So
is that what the surtax is for? Is for the parking? For the city to provide parking for them, or what?
It's for the privilege of being a store downtown, which at this point, it's not really much of a privilege because
it doesn't sound like a privilege at all. You gotta pay the city extra for it.
I know.
Well, I'll make my own downtown down the street.
Right. I mean, a lot of the businesses from downtown have been bailing to all these surrounding shopping centers and whatnot because taxes are just outrageous and they can't manage. They're not allowed to manage their own parking. So, I mean, when I lived there, I would constantly avoid downtown because I just hated paying for the meters or getting a ticket. And back actually when I was there, it was like $12. So it's actually down from $12 to $5, but still, and I hated going downtown because I didn't want to deal with the parking meter and getting a ticket. And those guys are like friggin' they have little sensors in their heads that go off when a parking meter's expired. They know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like 10 feet from my car like all day, and I still got a ticket. I didn't even notice that they came, stuck a ticket on my car and left.
I know here in Spokane they used to. Well, they just swapped everything out like the Seattle setups, the downtown Seattle parking. Where you gotta go, you can pay with your credit card and you just get the little slip and set the slip in your windshield from on the corner. And so there's not actually meters at every spot anymore. There's still some of them that still have that, but I know they used to. It was electronic, where it was actually the parking meter dude could just drive down the street and his little thing would go off and tell him exactly which meter was expired, and he could pull right up to it and write your ticket right on that second.
There was one city out west. I think it was Sacramento, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But they had relied so heavily on fines to cover like a huge gap in their budget of like $5 million, and they started installing all the meters that have credit card readers on them now.
Yeah.
And now they're not writing nearly as many fines because people's meters never expire. So
they're actually paying for their parking.
They're paying for their parking because I don't know about you, but I almost use cash. I don't use cash for anything these days. It's all on a card, so I rarely ever have change. So
that's all I use is cash. That would be exactly the opposite of you. I have no plastic, refuse to use plastic, and use only cash.
Well, maybe a little different than
I have a harder time now between with that. Well, at least the parking machines take cash, so.
Yeah. Okay, so for me at least, I rarely ever have cash, so I never have change in my car. So whenever I get to a meter, and it's like I don't have any change for it. Hopefully the meter maid's not anywhere nearby, so I can run into this store and get a coffee and get out of here without getting a ticket.
Yep. Oh yeah.
All right. I guess that's enough parking for today. So, go figure, like usual, RT, which is sponsored by the Russian government, seems to come up with better news than the American media.
Oh.
And you're muted. There you
go. Okay. I'm like, wait, I didn't mute it. I guess I was typing too hard with my non-typing fingers. Yep. All right. So we've got the headline story, or the headline says, cell phone users have no legitimate expectation of privacy. So we have a federal judge recently ruled that if someone has their cell phone turned on, their location data does not deserve protection under the Fourth Amendment, meaning law enforcement can track individuals without a search warrant. I myself, I'm kind of stuck on this one. I read this whole article. They're basically, the judge says, well, if you don't want to be tracked, shut your phone off. And I don't know. I'm not quite sure which way to go on this story. I don't know whether I should argue with it or agree with it. I mean, really. I mean, yes, okay, you're not consenting, but I mean, it's a privilege to have a mobile device and be able to be contacted at any time, which therefore you can't expect to be completely private because you're not inside your own home. So it's a mix, in my opinion. I'm not sure what opinion I have on this article yet. I haven't determined which way I want to go.
Yeah, but you would expect your, say, phone calls.
Well, yeah, your phone calls, but your location though, because you are using a mobile telecommunication device. Yeah.
But you're not using the government's device.
No, true.
You're using a device that you own that you're paying a private company to service.
Yeah. But again, I can see with a regular phone, but the newer smartphones, I mean, half the applications you download, you agree to share your location with them. So by agreeing to share with Google Maps your location, therefore, why wouldn't you share with the police?
Yeah, but at least you're consenting to sharing with Google Maps.
At that time, yes, you are consenting there.
But even then, they, like Google has privacy policies and whatnot that you are also consenting to at the same time. So at that point, you are consenting to share it with Google, which they are then telling you that they will not be sharing it with anybody else out of respect for your privacy. So at that point, you're saying, okay, this communication between me and my service provider, we have agreed that it is to be kept private. So any breach outside of that, it would be a violation of said agreement of privacy. And because I have this agreement of privacy, that should cover my expectation of privacy when it comes to anything.
Yeah, their argument is that you should be protecting your own privacy, and by taking the simple measure of turning your phone off.
Yeah, but that's just ridiculous. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's
Like,
it's such a toss-up to me, though.
if I have a letter in a sealed envelope
Mm-hmm.
and put it in the mailbox,
Well, yeah, of course, yes.
I mean, I
I
what,
expect
how
no one
am
else to read it.
I expect no one else to read it, and that is how the courts have found over and over again that you have an expectation of privacy when you stick something in an envelope and send it out. I mean, I'm not physically there to monitor the progress of my letter the whole time and keeping. So I have no I don't know why this would apply to my cell phone where
Mhm.
I already have this expectation. This is my device. This is our communication with this particular company.
No, I
It's
agree
to
with
remain
that.
private,
Yeah.
So
No, I completely agree with the fact that, yeah, I mean, obviously, if you made an agreement with the cell phone provider that you expect and them to not disclose anything like that, then yes, okay. But
in short,
if you haven't though, then you can't expect it.
right. But in
Yeah.
short, either way, the government's still in the wrong
Well,
because
no, they don't need to be tracking everyone's cell phones. No.
yeah. Well, obviously they don't give a shit about their own
You,
rules
you
anyway.
can't
So
tag.
what's it matter?
So therefore, you can track my cell phone, but you can't put a tracking device on my car without a warrant. But you can just randomly track my cell phone.
Right.
I mean, it kind of goes back to that. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It just sounds like another power grab.
Yeah. So actually this came out your way, isn't it? From the Olympian.
Which one?
That. Oh, actually, I didn't even realize this was an older story. This is actually back in March, where a man was mistaken for
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
wielding a gun when he was simply walking with an umbrella.
Yes, this one's funny.
So this is actually a little older. It was from March
Mhm.
of this year, and I don't know why it landed in my feed this week, but it did. So, anyways, a guy was walking with his umbrella,
Mhm.
and a teenage tipster had called the police. Saying that there was a man wearing black clothes and a ski mask when actually he was wearing a black turtleneck sweater with a black cap.
Mhm.
So he wasn't wearing a ski mask.
No. No.
Yeah, so this prompted the police to lock down three
Two or
schools,
three, yeah.
3 schools in the area, and they had choppers and all types of
The helicopter
goodies.
followed him home. I remember they interviewed him, and the helicopter followed him home. And I guess he shook his hand at the helicopter, like, "Why are you following me?"
Yeah.
And now he's like, "Maybe I shouldn't have done that."
Yeah, so I'm surprised they didn't shoot at him or something.
Yeah, from the helicopter, yeah.
Pointing his umbrella at them in a vicious manner.
Well, that was interesting. Is he says that that's his normal walk. Like, he takes that walk all the time, and I'm like, well, shouldn't that have known that then? I mean, obviously, I have neighbors that walk by at a consistent time all the time, and I'm like, if they were carrying an umbrella, I wouldn't be like, oh, it's a rifle. Like,
Yeah,
that's the neighbor. He walks there every day.
That was the biggest thing. How can you mistake an umbrella for a frickin' rifle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, was he carrying it like, it's my umbrella?
Yeah, across his chest.
Yeah, no. He was probably walking with it either over his head because it was raining, or he has it down and he's using it like a cane.
That was somebody. Somebody just posted today that they had a run-in where they had an umbrella and the handle was like a katana.
Oh yeah.
So it looked like a sword, but it was an umbrella with a sword handle. And the cops gave him a hard time and threatened to arrest him for like disorderly conduct or something like that because it was threatening or whatever. But it was an umbrella that had a sword handle. Yeah, people are a little too skittish these days.
Jumpy now. Everybody's too jumpy. Watch too much mainstream television. Stop it.
Well, it's probably not going to get any worse. I mean, any better with our next story about DHS and their. Oh wait a minute, that's a really old story. I don't know why I posted that one too. Jeez, I'm really bad at this week. Because that was friggin' from 2009. I don't... Forget it. I don't even know why that hit in my newsfeed. All right. Jeez.
We're just gonna skip. Let's just skip that one.
Let's just skip that one.
All right, we'll just skip that one.
So just a fun story. No, this isn't a fun story.
Well, we got some comments on the live feed.
Oh, nice.
Some recent comments.
So, California Supreme Court has declined an officer's appeal in the death of Kelly Thomas. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this particular case, but Kelly Thomas was a schizophrenic homeless man who was beaten to death in Fullerton, California, by 6 police officers, and the judge has declined has declined a request to overturn a lower court's decision in allowing a trial to go forward. So now some of these police officers are going to be, well, at least this particular police officer is going to be charged with second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. And this case, if you just YouTube it, there is actually security cam footage that caught the whole thing, and it's just insane about what happened. But the news is that a judge has again declined that the police officer has any immunity whatsoever, and that the trial will be going forward concerning the death of Kelly Thomas.
Good. That's a good one to hear. Good to know that the judge isn't on the cop's side like a lot of times we see.
Yeah, this case is just crazy. Like, if you go watch the video, it is insane, and it's completely unbelievable that one, it happened, and two, how it happened. It's completely unexcusable. It's just kind of sickening, and they totally mangled this guy really bad. So.
Oh yeah. Yep. No, that's cool. We got one comment in the YouTube page. One guy commented on the child, and he said he was against imprisoning a child, but he's not sure what the solution should be. But he doesn't think putting a child in prison is going to achieve anything good.
All right.
Good stuff.
Yep. So there's been some issues in Utah lately.
Oh yes. Yes. This is interesting. I read up on this. So we've got outside of Utah. Scroll down. Sorry, it's loading very slow. Where is it? It's at West Valley City, which is basically kind of attached to Salt Lake, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think I've actually been there before. But basically, we have an issue of the police department obviously taking drugs from the police stash when they take it from you. Many cases of people fighting charges of drug possession and blah, 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 and the police department dropping those charges as soon as the defense wants to have these drugs tested to prove that they're real drugs. And then the city's like, oh, no, we're going to drop the case. No, we're not even going to charge you anymore. And then coming to find that it's looking like there's evidence missing in a lot of stuff. What was it? Had the issue of police officers, one of the narcotics units in the city there, actually had extremely old cased drug paraphernalia still in his trunk. I don't remember exactly. I think it was what they said he had a couple pipes and maybe a bong or something, or a water pipe in the trunk of his. He's a narcotics officer, and he's got water pipes in his trunk from a long time ago.
Yeah, how do you leave those there?
Unless you're pulling them out at parties and using them. You got no point in having them in there, really. I mean, especially your narcotics unit. Why would you keep that in your trunk? Aren't you supposed to, like, put it in a bag and take it to the police department?
How could you possibly have forgotten it there? I mean, it's not like they go into the trunk like every freaking day.
Yeah. What? My bong's in the trunk?
Let's just keep that there.
Yeah, we're going to use that later. No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, I wouldn't give him crap for it. If it's weed, whoop-de-doo. Probably not on the job, but yeah. Whoop-de-doo, you keep your bong in your trunk. That's cool. Wouldn't do what you got to do, but not on the job. And you probably shouldn't have it in your police car. Yeah, and what? Then they said there was issue with the narcotics units when going into houses for busts and whatnot, actually taking trophies from these houses, people's jewelry, necklaces, and other items of particular likeness that would be able to be kept as a trophy to say, hey, look, we took this from this person's house in this cool bust. Which, no, you don't need to steal other people's personal property to feel good about your drug war that sucks anyway.
That should make you feel bad, if anything.
Yeah. I feel cool because I took from these people and then ruined their lives over this petty-ass crap? Really? No. No, that's just wrong. So, from what I understand, there's a huge deal about it going on right now, huge scrutiny. Supposed to be doing some internal investigation, and they're trying to fix a whole bunch of it. So we'll have to watch and see what comes of this, and if they actually fix any of these problems, or if anyone's held accountable for any of their actions. But basically, from what I understand, the main part of it was just the fact that a couple private attorneys noticed that the police department was letting people off the hook extremely easily in cases where they should not have been let off the hook. And basically these attorneys started asking questions. Why is the city letting up so easy? Why are we not trying to prosecute these people at all? And then, obviously, then we start digging deeper and we find out there's drugs missing, there's this stuff missing. So it looks pretty bad. I'm sure it's not every single officer is involved, I would hope. But it looks like there's a large majority of people entwined into this corruption in West Valley City, in Salt Lake.
Yeah, it says that they've dismissed dozens of cases.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, just dropping cases. Yeah, I'm like, what? You don't just drop cases unless the drugs are gone.
Yeah, it says the district attorney, after reviewing hundreds of cases, began dismissing them by the dozen, saying he could not successfully prosecute.
Yeah, it's like, well, why not?
Not that I have any problem with them not prosecuting.
No, not at all. No, good job. Yeah, but not for these reasons. Yeah, these reasons for not prosecuting are not good.
Yeah.
No, wrong circumstance. Good choice, but wrong circumstance.
So I guess in that vein, I'll jump forward a little bit. Here in Ohio, there's a former undersheriff for Love County named Jason Bone, and he's totally boned now. He has been charged with embezzlement. This is around, of course, the war on drugs, like always, where District 6, the DA for District 6 said that $73,000 seized from 35 drug investigation. From an interstate 35 drug investigation had been placed in the safe at the sheriff's department, and he now Jason Bone is charged with removing between $20,000 and $23,000 of the seized funds for his own use. The money was seized during a traffic stop, of course, under the asset forfeiture, thinking that it was related to drug money, as tends to be the case. So, yeah, he was skimming off the top a little bit. Well, I guess that's kind of skimming off half of the top.
Half of the top.
That's a big skim.
I'm just gonna take 50% right off the top. Yep,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, that's like 30%, close to it.
Oh, that's crazy.
So yeah, so that is kind of out of the war on drugs. Yeah, he's skimmed off the top of a drug stop that netted $73,000.
Crazy.
So he resigned his position a month before it looks like the charges came down. So he is now no longer sheriff. And it's funny because actually the original prosecutor recused himself because he was a consultant for the sheriff's department he worked for, and also the original judge had to recuse himself, probably for the same reason that he has worked so much with those particular people. So I guess it's good at that point
that extent's good.
Yeah, that they recuse themselves. Yeah, you don't have those huge conflicts.
Conflict of interest, yeah. Yep, that's good stuff.
So we'll see how that goes down.
Yeah.
So
which story you want to hit next?
Why don't we just well, if you want to hit Spokane, we can.
Yeah, we'll do that. So we got an interesting thing coming out of my city here. We have a Spokane police officer, Jeff Graves, has been put on administrative leave pending the outcome of an internal affairs investigation and criminal investigation. Excuse me. Basically, what's come out of this is the woman's name has been not released, and probably doesn't need to be. But basically, a woman has come forward accusing Graves of using her Facebook Messenger and the GPS location provided by Facebook to stalk her and show up at her home and workplace to, I guess, talk with her. Basically, the officer would show up unannounced, uninvited to her home and work to chat with her. The woman also claims that he had been trying to contact her on Facebook more than 100 times a day via Facebook messaging. So it really looks like an obvious case of harassment. And also the woman then claims that Graves' messages were extremely sexually aggressive in nature, and that she's actually claiming that he physically raped her. Does not specify where, when, anything like that, but that she's claiming that he sexually assaulted and raped her. The allegations were brung up May 9th. He was placed on administrative leave immediately after the allegations. Basically, we're going to have to wait the, obvious 6 to 9 months for them to internally investigate themselves.
This kind of ties back to our previous thing about the privacy with your location. In this case, it sounds like she was broadcasting her location on Facebook.
That's because that's what Facebook does for you, unless you change it and tell it not to.
Yeah, see,
the default settings are set like that.
Yeah, that one's kind like you are broadcasting it to the world, so there's no privacy on that particular case. So, not only can the police track you, but a stalker can track you.
Or a police officer stalker.
Yeah.
You could have the worst of two. The combined version.
Not good.
So,
no,
not good. I mean, obviously, I'm going to keep an eye on this and see what happens of it.
So this case is why you do not use Foursquare to check in.
That's a good one.
This is my anti-endorsement.
Yep. Yes. Stop doing that. Stop checking in at places with your telephones.
1, it's annoying, and 2, this could happen to you.
2, don't announce to everyone in the world where you're at. Yep. Exactly, because that's really dumb. I mean, why would you do that?
So, out of, I think, was this out of Florida? I don't know if it was out of Florida.
Which one?
Anyway, a judge has ruled that flashing your headlights to warn other drivers of a speed trap is protected free speech under the First Amendment.
I love it.
I know this is. I mean, not that we didn't already know this to be the case, but I've always heard of people getting in trouble for doing it. So this just kind of reiterates that you can't be ticketed for it. So this came out of last year.
Well, are they trying to make it actually a law to make it illegal there to do that?
I wouldn't be surprised. But
I thought I had heard something last week somewhere about them actually trying to pass a law to make it illegal and a ticketable offense.
Yeah, I don't think
for flashing your headlights.
I don't think they're going to get away with that.
I have no idea.
But this came out of last year. A guy named Ryan Kinter was ticketed in Seminole County, Florida, for flashing his headlights to warn oncoming drivers of a pending speed trap. He was ticketed under a statute that prohibited civilians from flashing emergency lights on their vehicles. The problem is
he doesn't have emergency lights on his vehicle.
Exactly. So the statute that the police cited him under did not apply to his headlights because it applied to having actual police lights and fire, emergency lights on your vehicle. That's what the statute referred to, not flashing your headlights to signify an emergency of some sort. It is actually, the lights that they actually use on police cars and fire engines and stuff like that. So his lawyer successfully argued that, one, he was cited under a statute that doesn't apply, and the second is that it is a form of free speech, which the circuit judge, Alan Dickey, agreed with both of those arguments and directed the Seminole County Sheriff's Department to cease ticketing motorists who flash headlights.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll chalk that up in the W column to at least reiterating that we are allowed to warn others of pending entrapment activities ahead.
That's right.
Yeah. So I guess we're
going to like that anyway.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to finish the show off with some gun news.
Gun news. Which one do you want to hit first?
Let's talk about New Jersey.
New Jersey, all right. So New Jersey, we had a obviously some form of city hearing on obviously probably negative gun legislation or restrictive gun legislation that was going on. And you have a gentleman. Oh, hold on, page is freaking out.
I know it. Shockwave died on me.
All right, here we go. So Second Amendment activist James. Ooh, don't want to mess that one up. Is it Caldia? Sorry if I got that wrong. Calda. Yeah. Yep. So he was making. I mean, you got the video on here, which we'll have posted up for you guys. Making an argument, a pro argument about guns, during his speech about it was, from what I can see, interrupted by one of the city officials, that he was out of order and just kept repeating the fact that he was out of order. When I've been to hearings like this, I've seen this. From what I understand, he was completely in the right and doing what he was supposed to.
It's not like he was saying anything. It's not like he was swearing or was raising his voice. He wasn't even saying anything controversial.
Yeah, it was his turn. He was speaking, and he was doing it very appropriately. But obviously said something that made whoever there very upset, and was then tossed out. Like, literally, the police officer came over, they drug him out of his chair and walked him out. And you hear, I actually had somebody comment to me the other day, because I posted this video up, asking why the people in the background were clapping, and I'm hoping, I mean, this is the way I took it as, is that they were clapping in acknowledgement to James, that he was doing the right thing and good for him, and in support of the fact of what he was doing, even though he was being drug out of the city hall or courtroom or whatever it is that he was in by security and police. That they were clapping in support.
If you watch the follow-up video, there's another video at the bottom of the page. Same thing. It sounded like the crowd was very on board with what he was saying, and they were standing up and yelling that, you know, this guy has a right to speak and he should be allowed to speak, and a lot of people were standing up for his right to do so, and the crowd was
whether or not
you're on his side.
I mean, whether or not you're pro-gun or anti-gun, I don't care. This gentleman has the right to speak and to do so in a way that everyone is allowed to do, and he was obviously interrupted and drug out because of what he was saying.
While he was speaking in a civil manner and not saying anything of malcontent.
No, he was completely in the right and doing everything perfect, and was forcibly removed for doing nothing wrong at all. And this is an obvious show of force by the city that they completely disagree with what he was saying, which is not how things should be done.
Well, he's in New Jersey, so.
Oh, yeah, I mean, what can you expect?
Well, apparently one man moving to Maine didn't expect what he got.
No, he did not at all.
So you want to cover that?
Yeah, we can. Let me grab it real quick to open that up. Oh, well, where is it? Uh-oh.
All right. Well, anyways, I have it up.
You got it?
Yeah, a Texas man was in the process of moving to Maine, where he made a very simple mistake, and he never made it to his new home.
Got it. Sorry.
Dustin Rayner is serving a 3 to 5 year prison sentence in New Jersey because he made the mistake of stopping to take a nap while he was on the multi-day drive from Texas to Maine. So police approached his car when he was taking a nap near a bank in Reddington, New Jersey. The police then searched his car after seeing gun cases laying on the back seat and found the man's personal gun collection, which he was transporting to his new house. This included 14 rifles, 4 shotguns, 3 handguns, and hollow point ammunition, which is apparently extremely illegal in New Jersey, which I did not know that was the case. I knew it was the case in New York City, but I didn't know it was in Jersey. But it's not overly surprising to me at this point that hollow point, go figure, you're not allowed to have what the police have.
No. Nope, can't do that. No. Wouldn't want to be able to defend yourself against someone.
So he was arrested and convicted. Who the heck convicted this guy?
I don't know.
And sentenced to 5 years in prison with the chance of parole after 3.
I don't get. Did he have a trial, like, with the jurors? I mean, this is what scares me. Like, people of New Jersey that stupid? I hope not.
I'm reading this right here. It was a jury trial.
No, wow.
And the jurors were not told about the federal law that allows people who are traveling to transport guns through states which may have restrictive gun laws.
And then the fact that, and even though, I mean, even if they didn't get told that, it comes to the fact of he didn't know. I mean, how can he be breaking a law that he wasn't even aware of? How can you convict him to 5 freaking years for that?
How can you convict him for a law that's already preempted by federal law? He was transporting through the state. New Jersey was not his final destination. All he did was friggin' take a nap.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I personally transport, firearms through New York State.
Mm-hmm.
I'm following all the standard federal procedures to do so.
How to do so, yeah.
But it is kind of nerve-wracking driving through New York State when you have what in that state is illegal.
Yeah, it would be a little intimidating, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not fun, but this is why people are legitimately worried, because obviously this guy was doing nothing wrong. He hurt nobody else. He was simply transporting his property from one state to another and
passing through. Yeah.
Doing the responsible thing, and instead of driving while tired, pulled over to take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure. I mean, this comes back to the story we did a week or two ago, where the dude, took the DVD player or the purse or whatever and was going to return it, but it was a sting by the police.
Yeah.
He tries to do the right thing, and then he gets jacked for it, which is what this guy ended up doing.
I think this just proves all and more. Just don't go to New Jersey.
Yeah.
Stop going there. I don't know how many this year alone, how many incidents I've heard of crap like this, of blatant wow cases where you're like, are you serious? What are these?
Well, that was New Jersey Weed Man was there too, right?
I think so. Yeah.
He got let off. He got let off on the one marijuana charges, but I think he got pulled back for something else, some weird violation. Now he's in jail in Jersey. So
there's another gentleman that right after the Sandy hurricane over there, some gentleman had an issue with the police department and the guns that he owned. Even though he had all the permits, it was because one style of them that he had was technically not allowed, and he's looking at some serious time for it.
Yeah, I mean, how are people? They even the people who are trying to obey all the laws. How are you possibly supposed to know them all? Because there are so many of them, and things that you wouldn't even think are illegal are illegal. Everything you want to do is illegal. If you search hard enough, I'm sure you'll figure it out. So
yeah,
I'm sure you'll find you're doing something illegal every day, and that the average American commits 3 felonies just in their financial transactions every single day.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that too. I was like, what was it? Yeah, something about everybody commits felonies every day.
Yep. So, but there's some good news coming out of Colorado when it comes to guns.
Yes. So what's it? Hold on, still loading here. Let me get the title so I can read it properly here. All right, so you got Colorado sheriffs are suing the state over new gun control laws. So we have a consortium of plaintiffs led by 54 of Colorado's 62 elected county sheriffs filed a lawsuit in federal court against the state Friday on an effort to overturn 2 new gun control bills that are set to go into effect on July 1st. Let's see. The plaintiffs have their sights on one law that effectively bans all firearm magazines, and one that requires a background check for every gun transfer when the gun will be in the possession of someone other than the owner for more than 72 hours. So which means Grandpa comes over, wants to go turkey hunting, leaves his gun at your place because he's forgetful Grandpa. Well, you better have a background check. Even though you're a grandson, you're probably all right.
Yeah.
Nope. You don't have a background check. You're going to jail.
And that's one of the things that always gets me that nobody wants to address is, okay, so I need to give a background check to my sister if I let her use one of my guns?
My dad's letting me use his shotgun to go turkey hunting.
Yeah.
And I have to do a background check to use his gun? Really?
Right.
No.
Because I'm going on a week-long trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So basically, so we have in the article, 18, what they said, what was it, Weld County Weld County Sheriff John, Cook or Cookie? Cook.
It's Cook.
Okay. Okay. All right. Actually said, he quoted, "On one hand, I'm proud to be part of this historical case, but on the other hand, it saddens me that we even have to be here at all," which I fully agree with him. But basically, their stance on suing the state is the fact that not only are these laws unconstitutional, but they're confusing and unenforceable, which is completely true in the sense of how are you going to enforce the fact that I let you borrow my gun and I didn't give you a background check? How are you going to prove that? How does one? Yeah,
Yeah, and I know that one of the things was to limit magazines to 15 rounds.
15 rounds.
Which the reason that this is considered banning all magazines is because it outlaws any magazine that can be easily converted to hold more than 15 rounds. Which a lot of the magazines these days, if you just look at it, it fits in the handle of the gun, and especially like 9mm, you can easily fit, 17 to 19 rounds in just the handle. So these magazines still take up the same amount of space. They just have, basically a larger hunk of plastic in there that prevents them from loading more ammunition. But of course, one of the things that came out of this, especially out of like New York, theirs being so restrictive of down to 7, a lot of gun manufacturers said, "Screw it, we're not going to make a magazine that small."
Mm-hmm.
So, just out of protest, essentially. But even then, I mean, this is not your quote-unquote high capacity. This is a standard capacity. Whatever comes with it standard is what standard capacity is. It's not the arbitrary high, quote-unquote high capacity. So, I mean, like the guns that a lot of police officers use, like the Glocks and whatnot, I mean, they come standard with 17, 19 round magazines. I mean, this is standard capacity. So, who brought it up? Somebody brought up that, the AR-15 with the 30 round magazine is designed for just one thing, to kill a lot of people in the shortest amount of time. Well, then why do cops carry AR-15s? They're not out there to shoot as many people as they can in the shortest amount of time. They use it for legitimate protective reasons. So if that's the case, anybody who happens to have an AR-15 has a legitimate purpose of protection to use it. Because obviously the cops aren't out there, well, some of them are, but the cops aren't out there to go out and shoot as many people as they can in the shortest amount of time possible.
I hope not.
That is not the reason this is not the purpose of owning a AR-15 or something like that. There are legitimate defensive uses for it, and this high capacity is just baloney because it's standard capacity. It's not anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see. I'm surprised. That's crazy that it is, what is it, 54 out of the 62 elected sheriffs that are on this. That's just amazing. It's
overwhelming.
It's like 80% of the sheriffs in the state are like,
they have a really Well done, Sheriff Force. I'm jealous of it.
Yeah, I hope more states. I would hope like New York could easily do it because they have way more sheriffs in the rural
Yes.
areas than the few counties that are completely urban.
Yeah.
So that would be awesome if like somebody like New York could do that. That'd be cool.
That'd be good stuff.
We'll see in the future. Oh, we didn't even put it in the prep. Adam Kokesh.
Oh, yes.
We didn't even talk about him.
Didn't. Well, we did. Paving roads.
Yeah, paving roads. So for those who don't know, Adam Kokesh is.
Well, he was detained.
Yeah.
Detained Friday.
Yeah.
Yep.
As a political prisoner, most likely, because he was trying to organize an armed march through Washington, D.C. But this past week he was at Smokedown Prohibition 5 in Philly, and he was speaking and was counting down the countdown to light up, and then when
obviously
that happened,
singled out of the crowd.
yeah, which is funny because he wasn't actually even smoking.
No, he wasn't smoking. Didn't have any.
He was just talking on the microphone.
Yeah, didn't have anything.
So he's been taken, like he was completely singled out of the crowd. He wasn't even doing anything illegal at the time, and they of course charge him with the good old resisting arrest.
But again, you have to be charged with an original crime to be resisting arrest from being arrested.
Right, and now he's being charged with assault on an officer, which I don't know. Right, exactly. Who did he assault? And I don't know if you've seen the video, but it looks like one of the police officers punched another police officer while they were detaining him. So
there's your assault.
Yeah. So this just like reeks of political prisoner.
Completely.
So yeah, I mean, he wasn't doing anything.
He didn't even go into the local law enforcement jail. He ended up in a Fed.
Yeah, he went straight to Fed. Yeah. But everybody else who was arrested went to the local jail. Yeah. So that should say something right there. That
automatically tells you there's something else going on here.
Yeah. So he has a hearing on Thursday to determine what's going on with him. So hopefully he gets released and. Hopefully. Like, yeah, this is BS charges, and yeah, we got the video proof to show it. So,
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what comes out of him. But so that's the current status. He's in jail, in federal jail, in Philly, because of his quote unquote his marijuana use. But yeah, that's not what he even got charged with. So.
Yep.
He wasn't even doing it, so this just reeks of they just wanted a reason to take him down. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully this doesn't affect the protest on July 4th. We shall see at this point, I guess, because at that point, if he has that pending case, it might be a long jail sentence and make it a little harder for him to actually cross the line if he has this pending over his head. So,
yep, because they could put it on, like, make it so he can't leave or anything like that. Yeah,
right, and it puts him into the habitual,
hold it over your head type shit.
Yeah, exactly. So that might be the goal, is to have something hanging over his head. So if he breaks the law while this is going on, he's going to get even more severe punishment than what he was already going to get. So.
Yep, wouldn't surprise me if that's what they're trying to do.
So we'll see how that plays out. We'll probably talk about it next week because I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of interesting developments in that particular story. So.
Yep.
We'll go from there.
Sure.
So, wow, it went really long today because we had a demo. It was nice having a demo on. So
it was.
We let him talk as long as he wanted to go. So.
Oh yeah,
that was nice. So, yeah. So remember to tune in every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. We do this every Tuesday on YouTube. So. Right now, we don't have anybody scheduled this week for interviews, but that could
You
change.
never know.
So,
Yeah.
so make sure to like the Facebook page, and we'll keep you up to date. And if you're somebody who would like to come on and talk about what's going on in your neck of the woods, we'd really like to hear from you, because I think the interviews that we have done were really fun, and I think a lot of people have really liked them. So we want to be able to do as much as possible. So maybe we'll reach out to some other individuals and see if we can get them on. But yeah, make sure to like the Facebook page. That's where we post all the updates of what's going on, so you're up to date and know what's going on. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that really helps, and like our videos, because that helps as well. And
It shows us that you guys are liking what we're doing, and we keep doing it.
and that'll help us to get into more ears, and that's the goal, is to spread the message of police accountability and liberty in general, that we seem to be losing every day to a police state, and we don't want that to happen. So we need to scream this from the rooftops as much as possible. So until next week, my name is Eric. You can find me over at freerockpress.com, and ohiocopblock.org is where I'm from. And with me tonight I had, as always, Adam from Spokane Copblock, and you can find them at Spokane Copblock if you just search them on Facebook. So until next week, remember 9 p.m. Tuesday nights, and until then, remember that badges don't grant extra rights.